Sometimes there is nothing more painful than watching a shining star fade because of their own choices. And today, the clearest example is Ken Yaman. A few years ago, his energy, discipline, and charisma made him an idol in Turkey and beyond. But that bright image now looks clouded. The love that should have sustained him, the friendship that should have protected him, and the environment that should have supported him have instead turned into a swamp, pulling him down. The central figure in this transformation is Sarah. At first, she seemed like a bridge to Europe, a charming woman, but over time, she became the person pushing him into destructive habits, endless nights, parties with alcohol, tobacco, drugs, and a lifestyle that consumes him. The result is clear. His face no longer shows freshness or youth. Ken looks tired, with premature wrinkles and a dim gaze. This is not just the passing of time. We are talking about a young actor, athletic, careful with his diet, yet no training can compensate for the damage of excess. And the saddest part is that the marks are not only physical, but also emotional. What once was warmth and closeness now feels like coldness and distance. Fans notice it. The star, who was once a role model for youth, now seems lost, trapped in an illusion. The inevitable question is, does Ken still control his destiny, or has he handed it over to others? That lifestyle disguised as freedom is, in truth, a golden cage that threatens both his career and his life. What is at stake is enormous. The most valuable asset for an actor is his face, his health, his charisma. And Ken is losing all of that. If he doesn't break away soon from Sarah and that false world, his downfall will be inevitable. Producers and audiences don't forgive a tired face and an empty energy. His supporters know it, and the message is clear. Ken, wake up! Those who love him don't want to see him destroyed, but strong, healthy, and shining as before. The choice is in his hands, to regain his life and career, or to let them fade away forever. The audience was divided. Those who supported John saw him as a victim of emotional abandonment. Those backing Demet's silence argued that not every gesture needs explanation. The podcast went viral, flooding platforms with fragments of the phrase that broke the silence. That silence broke my heart. This sparked deep debates. Sarah's followers also took sides. Some said this explained her temperament and need for confrontation, while others highlighted that she, unlike Demet, isn't afraid to express her opinion. Sarah's sarcastic phrase about Jan's silence sounded like a warning. Not everyone has the right to be silent when they hurt, and under that motto, her stance grew stronger. The podcast channel doubled its subscribers. Many wanted to hear the full interview, not just for the revelations, but for the genuine emotions. There were long pauses, held breaths, a deep desire to say what was unsaid. Because when inner silence is exposed in front of the microphone, it loses its power. And that was exactly what Jan sought. Meanwhile, on social networks, memes and montages circulated with the phrase from the audio, "Want to scream? Here it is," accompanied by images of Jan with a broken moon. Other users shared stories calling their exes symbols of absence. Fan pages exploded with debates. Who is right in this emotional conflict? A psychological blog highlighted the actor's honesty, pointing out that many people go through breakups without words, understanding that silence hurts more than insults. The podcast became a collective catharsis session because talking about invisible pain liberates, and when a famous person does it, it helps others not to feel alone. Demet never responded. For many, that confirmed her silence was a strategy or perhaps paralyzing sadness, but her decision not to speak kept communicating. And although John bravely showed the void she left, she herself created it with her lack of communication. Some close to them say John asked Demet to call him to explain before the show. He just wanted to understand, but there was no reconciliation. Her response was silence, the worst phrase for him. She didn't want to tell me. That marked the crack between them. By then, many shows dedicated hours to ethical debates. Is it necessary to talk about everything? Is showing pain exploitation? Some defended radical honesty, others criticized public dramatization. But the truth is that this intense message already had a life of its own. The next day, Sarah posted an ironic quote with an emoji. Silence isn't always noble. She didn't mention names, but understood everything. In her emotional world, there is no place for silence that escapes, that leaves without explanations. That phrase was another line in a discourse demanding clarity. While the next episodes of the podcast awaited their audience, Sarah and Jan faced a new test. Will verbal confrontation heal the wounds or only spark a new flame? Demet's silence was an echo, Sarah's reaction, a fire. And Jan, in the middle of both, became both refuge and storm. In the following days, Jan avoided interviews, taking refuge in his work, but his intense emotions showed in his performances, which gained weight and depth. Sarah, for her part, showed a more confident profile on social media, with meditative photos and phrases about conscious presence. "I don't expect you to understand me. I expect you to avoid me," she wrote. Her anger was reflected in that message. Those who remain silent without reason also leave a mark, but the inverse. The conversation about silence also exploded in feminist networks, where many women preferred direct accusation over emotional absenteeism. That presence, even if it hurts, is more honest than leaving without words. This debate grew after the podcast was published. In close interviews, friends of John commented that he values emotional clarity, that he believes love deserves explanations, even when it breaks, and that he doesn't trust silence as a refuge. This dramatization marked the end of a very painful chapter.